Happening now, Newsroom Africa, Channel 405, your news feed late night, and your reporting continues. Now, around 57% of pupils in South Africa are said to have experienced bullying during their high school years, with bullying being an age-old phenomenon, and now the rise of cyberbullying. The South African Depression and Anxiety Group says there's a need to focus on the issue. At times, people who hurt others are crying out for help themselves. Joining me now is registered counsellor and co-founder of Face Up South Africa, Kaylee Jorgensen. Kaylee, you work alongside the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, and you had a look at these numbers. These are not new numbers. 57% of learners in South Africa are said to have experienced bullying during some time in their high school years. What is the reason? Why? Is there a particular variant that you're looking at in high school that leads to such high levels of bullying?
So I must be honest, I wish we did have one specific reason, but unfortunately there's not. I mean, with 84% of learners saying they know somebody who has been a victim of bullying and cyberbullying, I think just with regards to COVID and the lockdown and kids using social media in the online world more and more and more, that could be one of the factors that cyberbullying has increased. But I mean, we're looking at from everything to do with depression, family violence, things they're seeing online and then reinforcing, low academic pressure, just the need to fit in. There's so much that learners are struggling with, and there's so many different things that could be the reason as to why they're bullying and where the bullying is actually coming from.
Yeah. To what extent have we focused on this in the past? And by focus, I'm saying a real concerted effort in, for example, equipping schools to be able to know how to respond. I mean, what has sparked this latest debate is the fact that, of course, the pupil has lost their life because of the bullying, and the parents of the learner are saying how the school responded was inadequate.
Definitely, and I think that's one of the problems is schools aren't as equipped as they should be. You know, schools and teachers, they've got so much on their plates every single day. And that's one of the reasons why I started Face Up, was really to give schools that platform just to help them figure out what's happening. Because if you've got 20, 30, 40 learners in your class and you're one person, how do you see and identify what's going on? So, you know, at Face Up and at Sadag, we very much believe that teachers and schools are the first aid when it comes to learners, bullying, mental health, all of that. And we have to put a spotlight on cyberbullying, the warning signs, the effects on suicide, so that teachers are not, because it's not a situation where it's only the learners or it's only the children and the teenagers. It's not. We have to look from a community perspective and actually say, how can we help the schools? How can we train teachers to be able to identify, firstly, what's happening, and then what is the second step? How do they actually dive in and help? How do they assist the learner? What are the next steps to take? So those are almost the things that we're finding is we do need to provide that support to teachers and just provide that ongoing, you know, whether it's identifying or being able to say, okay, this is the next step.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing a lack of psychologists, counselors, social workers in schools because at the end of the day, schools are so overcrowded and underfunded that they don't necessarily have the resources to equip or to hire somebody to come on site that is trained. So we are seeing the need for this more and more, you know, every day, actually.
Well, without sounding like we want to make an excuse, I suppose, for the schools and how they've responded, but it seems to me they are on the back foot when it comes to bullying in schools. They are more reactive than they are proactive, right? For example, you know how to protect kids from the playground. Make sure that the lawn is properly cut, there are no sharp objects and so forth. You're proactive about it. However, in protecting kids from an environment where it could possibly be bullied, I don't know if there are any proactive steps that schools can take.
So there definitely is. I mean, there needs to be a reporting system, you know, whether it's Face Up or whether it's another company that's, you know, doing it. Some schools have QR codes, others have WhatsApp groups, you know, whatever it is, there needs to be some form of reporting system within the school just so that learners can, in a safe place, report what they're going through. Because We know kids don't report. They're scared, firstly, what are their parents going to say? Secondly, what are the teachers going to say? Are they going to be believed? And if it is reporting bullying, well, they're so scared of being called a snitch. So they actually don't report. So if they've got a way to anonymously report, they need to have that safe space. So we need to encourage schools to actually, if they don't have a reporting system in place, an online trust box or a trust box standing outside the office, why don't they have that? And then if they don't, we need to make sure that, well, we can actually implement something. And it goes hand in hand with training on mental health. Because once you've got that report, what is the next step? And like you're saying, schools are on the back foot, but we need to almost turn that around and say, if you've got a device in your school, if your learner has a cell phone, then you need a reporting system. Or more than that, teachers need to know what is cyberbullying. How does cyberbullying happening? How do you notice? Because there's a very quick step, as we've seen with Lefuno, from being bullied physically, cyberbullying, and then suicide. There's such a strong link between them. And, with suicide being the second leading cause of death for children aged 15 years and older, we need to, turn that around from being on the defensive, on the back step, to actually being on kind of the forward, going forward and actually making a difference and saying, okay, this is enough. Yeah. We need to support our learners. We need to support our children. But more than that, we need to support the teachers and the parents and the schools to be able to say, this is happening now, but now how do we fix it? How do we go from here? If schools are getting iPads, well, then we need to help learners to understand how to be responsible online, because that's almost the missing step. Is learners have devices. They've got 2, 3, cell phones, or they've got 2 different Instagram accounts, but do they know how to be responsible online? And that is the question that we need to ask ourselves.
And I suppose we are still stuck, even with that acceleration in digital technologies, we are still fundamentally stuck at trying to protect children from the playground, where the war now is actually, there's a growing need to protect them online, because one, we have to, and something that I've asked myself, why the need for the other learners, for example, to pull out their phones and want to record this? And is that the extension of this bullying, and they are a part of it? Whether they are aware of it or they are not is another question.
Completely agree. And I always say to learners in all of our school talks, if there is a physical bullying situation happening, how many of them actually take their phones out and start recording it and then post it online? So they're not a bystander anymore, because they are actually not taking that bullying further. They're giving it to a much larger audience online, where now we can't stop it. Now, I always like to think of bullying, what's happening now, is it's the same that was happening 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we could find that letter that was being passed around in class and tear it up and throw it away. Now it's online. Now we can't tear it up and delete it, because it's always there.
Now, the actions of the bully are what becomes pronounced in society. However, there's very little that is being said about the state of the emotion of the bully, right? Do you think bullying is an act that comes from a weak emotional state?
I think there's lots of different reasons why somebody bullies, and I think we have to ask the question as to what's going on behind the scenes. So are they being bullied somewhere else? Is there aggression in the family? Are they reinforcing what they're seeing online? What are the different reasons? Are they depressed? Are they anxious? Are they doing this under peer pressure? So we do definitely need to understand from an emotional point of view, why is this child bullying? Because that is a spotlight that needs to be put on so that we can actually help this learner, because they need to know they can't do that. And if we don't stop it now, what's going to happen when they go into the workplace? We know workplace bullying is a huge problem at the moment, and it's almost being reinforced as well, and that cycle is just continuing. So in order to adequately and kind of from a full workforce help the bullies, we also need to understand and teach kids what's happening on the victim side as well.
Yeah.
That can lead to anxiety, suicide, eating disorders, substance abuse, self-harm just in general is increasing among teenagers. And also from the bystander side as well, because often what I see is bystanders are so scared to actually do anything. And it's a scary situation to be in, because if I do stand up, if I turn myself into an upstander rather than a bystander, am I the one that's now going to be targeted or victimized? What are the teachers going to do? What are the parents going to do? Am I going to be believed? So instead of taking action, we see a lot of kids actually resorting to becoming the bully by reinforcing it or just recording it and posting it online. So we do, in order to help the bully and understand their emotional side, we have to teach kids, where's the victim? What are they feeling? Because they're no longer just talking to a screen. There's somebody with feelings and emotions behind that. So we need to create almost awareness and education about all of the different emotional impacts and consequences and effects that can happen.
Yeah. Now, of course, you also point out here that bullying itself is something that the bully would have seen somewhere else. So they are modeling behavior, for example, maybe from parents. In fact, in the many conversations that I've been having with the South African Human Rights Commission on this is, for example, the issue that they're raising, that there's violence in society. So bullies are modeling what they are seeing in society. How do we intercept that model and break that pattern?
And I think that's such an important point, because parents are struggling just with COVID, unemployment. So you get parents that are tense, that are stressed, and that are anxious. And when you get home, you're now taking that out on your child. You need to, I think if we could create a program or something where we can just equip parents on dealing with their own stress, or, go to the workforce. And in the workplace, implement different processes, whether it's reporting systems or mental health awareness campaigns. But if we help adults, they can then model that down to their children, to their siblings, their friends, just from a community perspective. And we have to focus on awareness and a proactive approach to positive reinforcement. We all say that knowledge is power. And if you've got the knowledge as to what is depression, what is anxiety, and how do you actually deal with it, maybe that's how we deal with it. Instead of punishing, we rather actually just say, okay, well, here's the knowledge, here's how you handle it, and here's how we can all equip ourselves. And then hopefully something can actually be done.
Kelly Jorgensen, thanks for coming on tonight. I appreciate your time. That's registered counsellor and co-founder of Face Up South Africa there, Kelly Jorgensen. When we